And welcome back to the continuing breaking story. Jim and Sanjay, Jim, I don't know if you've heard this. I've just gotten word that there's just been a press conference in which they've said, and I want to confirm this, and I'm being cautious about what I'm saying, but that they've said that the workers have suspended operations and have evacuated. Now, I'm trying to get clarification whether that is the 50 workers that we were just talking about and the need for them not to stop operations. And again, we're working right now to try to get clarification. But if it is, in fact, those 50 workers who have suspended operations, that would be extraordinary, Jim.
I would be stunned. That would be a very bad sign. First of all, it would be a sign that
I find that hard to believe, frankly.
I find it hard to believe, and let me say why. Because then who is going to manage the problems at reactors 1, 2, and 3, and who's going to prevent those spent fuel ponds from catching fire or putting those fires out? I mean, essentially, you're saying, okay, we've got 6 reactors in trouble, you know, and we're just going to see where this goes. I would be shocked. I would be shocked.
Let's table this for now, just until we get some sort of independent confirmation or clarification or retranslation. I just want to make sure, because it could be, I mean, it's possible they were talking about the 750 workers or 800 workers who have already been evacuated. But again, Jim, in terms of when we talk about these spent fuel pods, they're not stored in anywhere near the conditions that the fuel rods that are active are stored. They're actually stored under like 30 feet of water or something on top of the reactors. Why are they storing fuel pods, spent fuel pods, on top of reactors?
Well, first of all, they don't do that anymore. But when they built this plant in 1971 and 1974 and the 1970s, they had a different conception of what was going to happen. You know, in any modern plant these days, temporary storage of fuel rods until they're cooled down enough to ship them to be either disposed or recycled. But they do it underground, and they do it in a more secure environment. But, you know, the 1970s, you know, 50 years ago, that wasn't the thinking. And they put it in the upper floor of the building. You know, and we already saw what happened earlier in the week when we had hydrogen explosions in the upper floors of the building. So obviously this was not a good idea. And even, you know, what's more concerning, you put your finger on it, and that, you know, Chernobyl did not have a containment vessel. So when things went bad, that material went up into the air. If things go bad with the spent fuel, there is no containment vessel. And so if they catch fire or they start to melt, there's nothing to prevent that from either going into the air or leaking down into the environment.
And again, that's where the wind direction really comes into play and becomes so important. I want to bring in Chad Myers, who's monitoring those conditions. Chad, first of all, where's the wind blowing now? And also, where has it been blowing over the last 24-hour period? Because we're told yesterday those spent fuel pods, some of them were exposed for some 2.5 hours, and there was a release. So what about the conditions yesterday?
There certainly was a release yesterday. There certainly was an east wind yesterday that would have brought the irradiation back over the island nation of. What's happened tonight is a big cold front has worked through, and these are just like cold fronts that we have in America. The wind has shifted completely offshore, taking all of that radiation with it. I know some radiation spreads out in all directions, but really the main stuff we're worried about for safety of people's health will be carried by the wind, and that wind is shifting offshore. I have a couple of things to show you here that have happened the past couple of hours. We've run a model here at CNN. It's not a radiation model, but if you took a balloon that didn't have helium in it, just took a balloon and let it go, you see where would this balloon fly over the next few days? It would all those models, no matter what level you release that balloon, 100 feet, 200 feet, 500 feet, it would all blow offshore, away from the land and away from the people. That's not going to be the case Saturday. This all will change again when a low pressure will bring more winds from the east and from the southeast. This entire pattern will change, and weather patterns change all the time. This is not a big breaking news event that we're going to have the weather patterns change. But from Fujiyama, right here, right there, that is the center. We cannot get a wind any more than north or south, from the north, and This is all good, but anything here that would blow from northeast, southeast, that would all be bad. That would all bring heavy radiation to millions of people. This is a very highly populated, densely populated country.
All right, Sanjay, for a lot of people in the immediate evacuation zone, and even in the areas not an evacuation zone at this point, there was a 30-kilometer area that they said wanted people to basically shelter in place, to stay in their homes, to shut off ventilation, not have any air conditioning or anything that would have ventilating outside air in. Does that actually work?
Yeah, it really can. And, notwithstanding this potential new information, if the levels don't go any higher than the highest readings we've seen, again, this 400 millisievert number, people will come to understand the significance of that. That starts to disperse as you get outside the gates of the reactor, as you get further and further away from it. 20-kilometer evacuation zone, another 10 kilometers after that. Essentially, people are shielding themselves. They're inside their home. They're turning off the ventilation from the outside, so they're shielding themselves from those gamma rays, that gamma radiation that we're talking about here.
They're also telling people not to, to wear long sleeves, not to try to have too much skin exposed.
Right. There's concern that some of this can actually penetrate the skin, and as almost simplistic as it sounds, to cover your skin in that way can be helpful, and then to either, wash those, dispose of them afterwards, all of that can be helpful. But, reducing the time of exposure, so time, reducing the distance, or increasing the distance rather, so you're further away from the exposure source distance, and then shielding in all these different ways. Obviously, we're carrying these dosimeters, gives you a little bit more guidance on all that, but that's the basic precautionary measures here.
Jim, it seems very basic, but I guess, even little things like being inside or being in a vehicle, ideally being in a tall building, a big difference.
Oh, absolutely. And we've worked and talked to Anderson here about what happens if there's a radiological attack, a terrorist attack, in which radiological materials are dispersed. The most common suggestion is shelter in place. You have your own containment vessel. Your house is made of concrete or wood or whatever. That's protecting you. So you stay inside. You drink bottled water. You tape the windows, just like we talk about here in the United States. That's what they should be now in preparation for exposures that might come later.
Drew Griffin from CNN Special Investigations Unit also joins us. Drew, you've been looking into the record of this company and also the Japanese government, frankly, on nuclear issues, but this company that runs the plant, have they been forthright in the past?
Not at all. And in fact, we're seeing that even in this instant. We're hearing from Japan today that the Japanese Prime Minister was heard using profanity in a call with TEPCO, Tokyo Electric Power Company officials, complaining that it took this company an hour to notify the government of that first explosion. And that, I must say, has been one of the biggest concern of critics and watchdog groups. This company has a pattern of delayed reporting, downplaying the problems that they're having, and in some cases outright lying about what has happened. That sounds rather strong, but Anderson, the company was rocked in 2002. The president, the chairman, 3 other executives all resigned in this scandal involving lying about safety inspections and fudging records and repair records. Some of those repair records, I might say, right there at the Daiichi plant, which were faked to show that it was safer and there were not these flaws there in the system. He promised to do better, said these dishonest practices wouldn't continue. But in an earthquake in 2007 at another one of TEPCO's plants, it was a small fire at the time, we thought. They said it was a possible fire involving some kind of electric transformer. Well, it turns out that fire burned for 2 hours. 300 gallons of radioactive water leaked into the sea. All of that came out afterwards. The company again said it was sorry, would do better. And at that time, Anderson, I want to tell you, the company promised, this is in 2007, that it was going to enhance in-house firefighting systems. One of the problems, they said, which is why that fire burned for so long, was during the earthquake, they couldn't get on the phone with the fire department because the lines were congested. Can you imagine that at a nuclear plant? They couldn't call the fire department for 2 hours? I think that's why Jim Walsh is saying, it's time to bring in some of the big boys. I hate to say it, but some big boys who can handle these kind of crises, because TEPCO has proven itself inept in the past, and many critics fear that there's a lot of that going on now, many of it which we don't know about.
Yeah. We are monitoring a press conference. Who's giving the press conference exactly? CNN out of New York and also Tokyo right now, monitoring very closely a press conference from Japan's chief cabinet secretary. And that's where this information was said that operations have suspended. Again, it's pretty stunning news if this is in fact the case. So again, we're trying to be very cautious in saying we have not independently confirmed this. We're trying to get some clarification if that means that the 50 workers who, at great personal risk, have been working around the clock, have actually suspended operations. Jim, it's hard to fathom if that is in fact the case. We're going to take a quick break, but before we do, Jim, just to kind of summarize here, what we're looking at, we have 6 reactors here. Reactors 1, 2, and 3, we're looking at 3 Mile Island type situations with them. Reactors 4, 5, and 6 with these spent fuel pods, what is the worst case scenario there? Is that more of a Chernobyl situation where because there's not container vessels around, there would be more of a direct release?
Yeah, the Chernobyl is not an exact analogy, Anderson, because Chernobyl did have explosions that helped carry that material up. But essentially, you are correct that it is like Chernobyl in that there is no containment vessel, and that if this material were to catch fire, it would go into the environment, or if it began to melt, like we've been talking about in the other reactors, this material could melt and then into the environment because, again, no containment vessel. These are major risks, and we were warned about them yesterday. The IAEA said there may be problems at reactors 4, 5, and 6, and it seems to me, if you have 6 reactors in one place that are each having problems and different problems, then you need to bring a lot of resources to bear.
There had been talk about bringing helicopters, water, to try to keep the fuel pods covered in water, and obviously fight the fires as well. If it is, in fact, those 50 workers have left, that would, I assume, be one of the few ways then for them to continue to try to do something in terms of keeping these things underwater.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to remain, I'm probably going to be wrong about this, but that's live TV. I can't believe that they would withdraw the workers. And that.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe.
Case.
I agree. Yeah.
But it
let's
illustrates
take a break. We'll try to figure it out, and we'll.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.